Hey, welcome back to Rust Order Garage, 61 Rambler Rock Box. We are moving right along. I have been very busy lately, but I'm trying to get some time on this, and I'm actually much later in the day than I normally even try to do anything, but I'm going to try to get something done. So in the last video, we finished up the floors. Since then, I did weld in the support for the lower rear seat, so that's in, no big deal there. I took the doors off the car, vacuumed out, 10 pounds of grinding dust, and I think the body is ready to fly off of the chassis. So I'm about ready to give that a shot. Who knows if it'll come up nice the first time or not. I did strap the front of the body to the lift because I know it's going to be unbalanced. The back is going to want to tilt. So rather than drop the car on the ground, hopefully I have the straps in a spot right now where okay, they'll hold them. Here goes nothing. The body bolts are obviously all out. Let's see if this thing wants to tip over. And now that I see what I'm doing here, I got to tighten up my straps because this is going to be much closer. Let's see, how's this look? Couple on this. I just want to make sure the body doesn't want to tip over, but we're not going to go too high before we make sure of that. Clear the transmission. Okay. We're free now. No, the back's going up in the air. All right, we're hooked on something here somehow. Let me get under the back and see what the deal is. All right, I lost my microphone there. Dying on battery, so I switched out. Starting to go up. I think we're clear. Just very dicey because it's at, I know it's very unbalanced. So that always makes me nervous, but these straps are not going to break. Dicey, dicey. All right, we have liftoff. Okay, now we'll get a look at the frame. We've never seen the center section before, and that should make it a lot easier to get the underside of the body welded up as well. All right, so I think what I'm going to do is the chassis first before dealing with the body. Going to have to make some repairs. These are the obviously original body mounts, and the holes are blown open as expected up front here. I did buy new body mounts. I think they're polyurethane, but you can see that huge hole there. That's supposed to be a lot smaller. So we're going to be doing some repairs on that. Throwing a pile of body bushings. Here's the middle ones. That's more like what the hole should look like. That one hole is okay. There. So it's just these front ones are going to need some repair work. And then the back ones, we know those holes were all good. So that'll be it for body mounts. We'll have a couple holes to repair. Those are dummy mounts that sit there. All the fuel lines, brake lines have to go away. Then replace them. I don't like splices and that kind of garbage. And we'll get rid of all that. Maybe I'll run fuel lines beforehand. I don't know. I usually do all that stuff after the body's on the frame. I'll run all the brake lines, all fuel lines. Proportioning valve is going to stay where it is. I could probably run the brake lines, except for the ones up to the master. I just run long lines and be done with that. Here's the Chevelle crossmember we put in. That's all good. All right. I think next thing will be we'll get the engine and transmission off of here. All right. I think the engine's ready to come out. I removed the 2 motor mount bolts, 2 transmission mount bolts, took the exhaust manifolds off just to get them out of the way. And that's just a matter of seeing if it comes off of here easily or if it's going to be a problem. I had to put a jack under the frame because there's not enough height for the hoist. Let's just see if this wants to come up straight. Like not so bad. Oh, you know what I should have done? We'll do it later. I got to build a drive shaft. I could have done it now. We'll do it after the chassis is done. Because so far anyway, looking through my stash of drive shafts, I do not have one that is the right length. So we're going to make one. Jack in the way. Clear. Jack down. All right. Well, at least something went smoothly. Set that down slow, baby, slow. That done. I got to drill some holes here. So like I said, I've had a tack weld on the mount here because it was only held with 1 bolt. I didn't want it to move. I got to drill some holes for this new mounting position on that mount. And then maybe we can start stripping this chassis down, because I actually have upgrades. You've already seen I have new control arms, drop spindles, all new brakes, all that stuff for the front. I also have a sway bar. I want to see if it'll fit or not. I got to compare to this one when we get it off. And in the back suspension, since I'm a hoarder, digging through my pile of stuff, and I actually found an aftermarket set of upper control arms. They're not adjustable, but they're beefier than those. And an aftermarket set of lower control arms with the sway bar. So all that stuff's going to go in. Plus we got to take the rear apart and put in the Paratrax locker. All right, let's get some holes drilled. I'm going to use this one just to get a little bit of a pilot hole. Well, maybe it'll go all the way through. Probably would, but I'll use my smaller bits because, you see, I used a drill bit to get my seam sealer tube cleaned up, and that's what I ended up with, so I need to clean that up. Let's see if it still works. Yep. Drill bit still works. It's going to be interesting getting the sealer off of there, though. There we go. That worked. All right, I got most of the sealer off of it anyway. Go up one more size. All right. That one's like halfway on a hole, so that one's more of a problem. All right, I think this will be the last drill. Nice. Nice. You get a bolt, see if that works. All right, 3/8 bolt fits in there no problem. And this side will actually have 4 bolts holding it together, which is pretty cool. We get those in there, and then we'll come back and do something else. All right, continue tear down on this chassis here. Is that what we're doing? What did we do? Took the motor and trans out. Is that all we've done? I guess that's all we've done. All right, well, we're gonna start. We're gonna start to tear down on this chassis. I think I may do the rear suspension first, just because if I get, you know, a coil spring in the head, I'd rather have that happen in the morning so I can get to the hospital on time. But yeah. But one thing I do want to do up front here, like I said, we are going to be doing some upgrades on here. Of course, no money to low money upgrades. But I have a sway bar that I took off of an S10 Blazer. I'm sure that sounded horrible, and I'll probably have to edit it out. I had if you were watching my videos, I had a white S10 Blazer 4-door here that I brought home a while back for a couple $100 because it had the S10 leaf springs and the 4x4 rear axle. Same stuff I used in my 56 Chevy pickup. Well, because I have another one in the corner waiting to be built, I figured I'd bring it home for the axle. But regardless, it had a huge front sway bar on it, and I figured it's S10. Maybe it'd be the same as this. I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to get this sway bar off, and what we'll do is we'll lay this on the ground and lay the S10 Blazer sway bar on top of it. We'll see if it looks close. Okay, no luck putting an S10 sway bar on a G-body, and you know, I should have realized this before I even attempted it. The G-body chassis is wider than an S10, so you could probably put a G-body sway bar on an S10. You know, it'd be close. Maybe the end links would be out a little bit, but you can see the mounting points are wider on the G-body as expected, and there's not enough width in that sway bar to get it mounted. So even though it's bigger, the one I'm using is a 1-inch bar. That's just going to have to be enough unless I find a bigger one. I don't know what the Monte Carlo Super Sport used. I'll have to find that out. But for now, I'll get some new bushings and end links for this sway bar, and this will be what we use. All right, well, unfortunately, sway bar didn't fit. That's okay. I don't think it would have been that huge of an improvement. I think the 1-inch will be just fine. So like I said, next thing I'm going to do, I want to get this rear axle out of here. And just make sure it's what I think it is. It's supposed to be a 373 of a Monte SS. I'm pretty sure I checked the gear ratio doing the spin check, but I want to see inside just to be safe. Okay, I think we're ready to pull the rear out of here. All the bolts are out. E-brake cables, I think, are free. Brake line is off. Shocks are unbolted. Are we high enough on the frame? I think so. Maybe. Maybe not. Have to raise the frame up a little bit more. All right, now we can get the axle out of here. All right, last thing to do. See if the lower control arms will come out without a fight and unbolt the shocks. Springs are already off. And then once that stuff's off, we'll open it up and see if it's what it's supposed to be. All right, now it's time to see what we got here. Somebody has been in this rear before because I see RTV. Let's see what it is. Hopefully, just a 373 open. Well, we're going to need to tap this thing off of here. Let's see. He's stuck on there. All right. Looks like it's what we thought it was. At least as far as the housing. Let's get this rotated. It's an open rear, which is good because that means our power tracks will work in this no problem. Let me just check the ratio. All right, we'll just turn this and get the numbers, and there are the numbers. There we are. 1141. That should be a 373. All right. So it is exactly what we hoped it is. The fluid looks good. I don't see any issues with the ring gear, at least from what I can see here. Looks good. So for now, I'll just button it up. But I will do a video on the power tracks install, and we'll get that put in here before we paint the rear. And about, if you're new to this, the 1141 there, that's the tooth count. That's 11 teeth on the pinion, 41 teeth on the ring. Divide them, 41 divided by 11, and that should come out around 373. And these are GM gears, originals, you can tell. There's the GM stamped into them. If they're aftermarket, you'll see their name or their symbol or something there. I know Richmond has like a double diamond you'd see on it. And I don't know what Yukon uses or that stuff, but it's an open carrier, no clutches. Let's see here, I can turn the pinion a little bit without this thing falling off. There you go. Just the 4 gears, 4 spider gears in there, and no clutch pack. So just an open housing, open carrier, and that's good. Like I said, that'll work with our power tracks. All right, we got the rear suspension now. All that's handled. Everything's out. It is getting late in the day. Like I said, I got a late start. I think the one thing left I'll do today is I'm going to pull all the fuel lines, all the brake lines, because they're all junk. I mean, there's just splices everywhere. There's a compression fitting on a front brake line. Union here, and just another foot down, there's another union there on the same line. Fuel line's got splices here. That might even be the return line, because here I think it's the supply line. That's got a splice in it. It's all junk. So all of that has to get out of here. We'll make all new lines. All right, tons of clamps to remove. I'll just save them all and reuse them where needed, because I don't know how this is going to lay out. The fuel lines are going to end up being on the driver's side now, not on the passenger side. So anything on this side wouldn't be used anyway. But all these mounting clips will be good to have when we put all the new lines in. Another splice. They're everywhere. All right, all the brake lines are gone. All the fuel lines are gone. Getting down to it. Really nothing left but front suspension and steering. I don't think I'm going to do that tonight. I think I'll come out fresh in the morning, get that torn down. We'll check the condition of the joints. I think I have one outer tie rod in that's bad and everything else is good, so it can just be cleaned up and reused. And of course we know we're going to be replacing the control arms and stuff just because we have them. And new shocks, of course. I bought new shocks front and rear. And once this is all stripped down, we'll be getting ready to clean it and paint it, except still got to fix those body mounts. All right, another day. We're back on it. So I figured today will be the day we get the front suspension off of this chassis. Let me get the right socket to get the wheels off of this thing. And it'd be nice to be painting it by the weekend, by the end of the weekend, if possible. The weather looks like it's not going to be too bad. I am up against it for temperature. That's my problem, because it gets cold now. Gets cold at night. But I think during the day, we still have enough heat to get stuff done. And it's not like we're worried about perfection here. We just need to get it painted black. Not a show car, just a driver. All right, let's get these wheels off of here. And what's the first thing we're going to do here? Probably the steering. Get all the steering box and the steering linkage, idler arm. This is on jack stands. Coil springs will be fun because obviously we have no weight on anything. So I'm just going to let them hit the floor. I am just going to take the whole steering linkage off as an assembly. This is the only tie rod end that felt like it had some play in it. Everything else felt okay. And it's usually the outer tie rod ends that are wear out the first. Yeah, this one's junk. Got some slop in it. But the inners are in good shape and they're greasable. And they could be older Moog stuff that's better than what I can buy new now. So I'm going to reuse them. And this outer tie rod end, I believe, was also good. It's I think been replaced before, so I think that one over there could be an original. I don't know. All right, I got both outer tie rod ends disconnected. Said this one's worn out, that one's good. Both of the inner tie rod ends are good. Idler arm is good. So none of that stuff needs to be replaced. There is no sense replacing parts that are not bad. Take this whole steering assembly off for cleaning. Next thing I'm going to do, spindles. And there's enough old grease and stuff jammed in here that I can't even see the nuts. So clean those off, split this. Said even if I didn't have new control arms, I would be replacing ball joints, at least the lowers. They're the ones that take the wear. The uppers are almost never bad, but we're going to take this apart, and pretty much none of this is going to get reused except for the coil springs. All right, these are probably original ball joints because they are not looking like they have ever been accessed before. Stuff is just covered in old grease and rust underneath, so I'm sure it'll break loose. But for those of you new to this stuff, this spindle is keeping the spring compressed here. So this is where we start getting into stuff where you can get hurt. But I'm going to try to show you a way that works for me to not get hurt. And I don't use a spring compressor tool. I used to, but I had a lot of problems with them getting hung up in the control arm, and if that gets stuck in there, it's worse than if you don't have a tool in there. So what I'm going to do first here, said I've got the nuts, I'll get those exposed and get them loose, and I'm going to unscrew the ball joint nuts, but I'm not going to remove them completely. I'll leave them on a few threads. Now, the bottom is usually 7/8, but not in this case because this is metric stuff, I think, on here. All right, so I've dug out the cotter pins on the upper and lower ball joint mounting nuts, pulled them out, loosened up the bottom nut, which turned out to be, it's probably metric, but I used a 15/16 and a 7/8 on the top, actually. So those nuts are backed off of the joint, but are not falling off. They're out multiple threads, but they're still in place because I need to use the spring pressure to split this. And I could just use a pickle fork, and I may, but first I'm just going to strike the spindle. I'm going to hit the top first and the back up here and see if I can get the spring pressure to break the ball joint loose. Now that's the nut up here is still threaded on. It's not tight, but it's not falling off because you don't want this to come flying down and hurt you or damage something. So I think it did it. Yeah, that's it. So that broke down. That's there. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom here. I'm going to hit the casting around the ball joint and get it to release. There it goes. All right, so now with the ball joints broken free off of the spindle, the shock absorber is the thing holding this all together right now. So when I take the nuts off of I'm going to unscrew the upper ball joint nut. This thing's going to want to fly apart. The spring's going to want to make this all come into pieces. So the shock absorber is still in place. I took the bottom bolts out of it, so it's still there, but the top nut is still in place. So when this ball joint on the top lets loose and the spring expands, the shock is actually going to be my safety right now and hold this thing together. So that's what I'm going to use as my safety. You could also put a chain through the spring or something like that, or you could remove the shock and put a long threaded rod. Anything like that would work as a safety. I'm going to do it this way and just keep my feet clear. Disclaimer, do any of this kind of stuff at your own risk. I'm not telling you what to do. This is just how I do it. because when this spring lets loose, it's got a lot of force behind it. And normally, I would do this with a whole assembled car, so you have all the weight on it, and you can put a floor jack under it. But I can't do that, obviously, right now. There she goes. Not too violent. And now that the lower nut on the ball joint was already broken free, I can just spin it off like that. And there's our spindle. Now remember, this spring, even though it is very well extended, still has pressure on it. So now I'm going to try to unscrew the top nut on the shock and let this thing go down all the way. If that doesn't work, I'll have to cut the nut. But we'll see what it does here. That should probably be a 15 millimeter. Let me see. I think so. Keep my feet clear of that thing. Let's see if this comes off. Looks like it. I think. Oh yeah, see the spring going down? That is that. I'll give that a shot. And that's it. There's a shock absorber with mouse house. These are obviously junk. We've got new shocks. And that is a, or at least I'll say, my way of getting the springs out safely without hurting anything. And looks like we may be buying new springs. All right, well, it's time to look into springs. I'll buy a set for Monte Carlo SS. I don't know if they're going to be any different than this Malibu. And then we get into, do I still need to put the 2-inch drop spindles on? I assume I do because the car is pretty low. Good thing I took this apart because that lower control arm is garbage. The drain hole at the bottom was plugged up with dirt and water sat in there, and it's basically very rusty and thin where the spring goes in. So I'm glad I took that apart. I'll show it to you as soon as I get that control arm off. Next thing I'm going to do is remove that control arm, and I'm going to remove the upper control arm and all the alignment shims that are in here. I'm going to save them in their position that they're in now and label them. So when it goes back together, it'll be close. This is still going to need a front end alignment, I'm sure, because I'm changing a tie rod end and taking all this apart. And we'll get to that after the car's done. But, like I said, for now, I'm going to remove all this stuff, and I'll show you that lower control arm, and I'll see if the other side's the same way. All right, moving along. I know this stuff is really interesting, I'm sure, but it's what I have to do right now. There's nothing I can do about it. Eventually, we'll get into some, I don't know, more entertaining stuff. This is just documenting my life at this moment. Anyway, you can see the inside of this lower control arm is no good. It's rotted away. It's thin. And, you know, not saying it would have broken or anything, but it's definitely not usable. So, good thing we got those new ones. That worked out great. So, we'll get the other side removed. I expect it to be just like this side. And then we'll be, I think, pretty much stripped down. Frame is stripped as far as it's going down. Got this side all apart. No surprises other than lower control arm on this side also had some rust in it, so I threw those away. The spring on this side was not broken. And looking at the springs, in reality, with that break, I lost like a half a coil. And that's not a big deal if I don't have something on hand, I may just cut the other one to match and, you know, straighten that out a little bit there. But that only broke because it sat down there in that muck in the bottom of the lower control arm and rusted, and it broke. The rest of the spring, I'm sure, is fine. And I'm a little dicey if I don't have used ones around. I'm not real big on buying brand new springs because I just, you know, normally when you do that, it takes a while for them to settle, and I really don't want the attitude of nose high on this car. That's why I bought that other stuff. And I'm not going to put the drop coils in because I just think that'll be too much. I'd like to keep it somewhat normal ride. So I think I may just cut that spring and see what happens. So I think that'll be it for this one. Next video should be painting this frame. We are a little ahead of schedule. It's going to be middle of September shortly. And I wanted to be painting by October 1st, so that's good. I'm a couple weeks up. Swap meets are coming up, so weekend time's also going to be tight. But I need to get the paint work done before the weather gets cold. So I think we're okay that way. So next will be painting the chassis, putting the front end back together with all the new parts and whatever coil springs I decide to use, and putting the power tracks and the rear axle and getting that all installed. Pretty much going to build the whole chassis and then get underneath this thing and finish it up. And once it's bolted together, I really don't have to worry about the weather so much as far as temperature. I know I'm going to have to do some touch-ups on the frame because I have not built the radiator support area and that stuff yet, and I know that'll be cutting and welding. So if I'm going to weld onto the frame or cut on the frame, I'll have to touch it up, but that's no big deal. Again, not building a show car here. This is just going to be a fun driver. I'm already more than is needed. This did not need to happen. The only reason it's happening is because I had to get underneath this to fix the bottom anyway. So it's one of those might as well things that get you in trouble. So that's it. Good news is we're moving forward. It's going to be fun to drive. This is the kind of stuff, at least we're starting to get some of the fun stuff, because a lot of this stuff, you know, if you build stuff, you just got to push yourself to get it done because it's not fun work. But you know, in the end, it'll be worth it. So that's that. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I really appreciate the subscribers. And thank you so much for following this build. Even if it's not something that you would build, I hope it's entertaining in some way or form. As long as it doesn't blow up when we're done with it. We'll see. See ya.